All right, I believe we're back. And on a side note, I wanted to just see if I could get some participation in here. If you are watching, just post down in the chat or in the comments later on the video where uh, what sent you to watch the video, whether it was just me physically telling you or if you saw a post on Facebook or just in the recommendations on YouTube. I think it'd be nice for everybody to kind of get an idea of where everybody else is coming from. So, like I mentioned, I am going to be talking about a sports topic, and that sports topic is offsides. All right, offsides. So, specifically, I'm going to be explaining what offsides is in soccer. But there are offsides calls in many other sports, including hockey, football, rugby. I believe even water polo has an offsides. Don't quote me on that. But I will be explaining soccer first, and then I will give a little idea of how offsides is different in other sports. Now, the reason that I wanted to talk about offsides in soccer is because I am a soccer fan. I played soccer all of my life, and whenever I go to a game with people that don't necessarily know the game, they tend to. That's the one call that they usually ask me about is offsides. So I'm just gonna draw a field here, and then we'll move on from there. It is a little confusing when you're watching the game to understand why that call is made, but then from a player standpoint, either I'm just used to the call or it actually makes sense. So you get the goals over here and one over here. Okay, so this is the normal soccer field, I believe. So for people that don't necessarily know the size of soccer fields. It's about the size of it's about the length of a football field if you add in the end zones, but it is significantly wider. So a football field would only go to about there in width. So first off, we'll have one team. So normal way to do it is X's and O's. So we'll have our X's, and a normal formation would maybe be a 4-4-2. What a 4-4-2 means is that you have 4 defenders, 4 midfielders, and 2 offenders. And that's just a formation so that you can spread out across the field and have a solid backfield so that you can stop people from moving up. So then you have the goalie back here. So you'll notice that there is this line that the defense kind of makes. And what happens is that the defense will make sure that they form this line, or at least keep this line fairly up the field, because this plays into the call of offsides. So what is offsides? Offsides in soccer is basically when it's essentially cherry picking. So if you've ever played like maybe football or something, or I guess basketball could technically work, and you had somebody maybe standing in the end zone the whole time, or you had one person sitting under the hoop that you just kept feeding balls to so they could put them in the hoop or lay up or something. This is what we're trying to avoid in soccer. So what happens is if this person is here and they have the ball, so I'll make it an asterisk, then if you have another person right here and they pass the ball to this person while this person right here is standing on the goal side of this defensive line, this player is considered offsides. The ref over here will raise their flag, and then the X team will get the ball at the spot that the player is offsides, or at least in the same lateral plane as that player, and or actually, I believe they get the ball at the defensive line. So I might be wrong on that. But so wherever this ref stops and raises the flag, that's where they get the ball on that lateral plane, and they can get a free kick to restart the game in their favor. So the way that you get around this call is by having this player here start back here and having this guy say, well, notify him or her, and then pass the ball prior to the second player making their run into the box to take the shot. Now, this offsides is not restricted to this box, so you can have you could have the defense right here, and if the player was over here, or maybe if we gave the ball back here to a different person, and this person was open, then passing the ball to that person would be offsides. Now, the official rule, sorry about that. The official rule is to have, if a player is behind the last defender. So let's say we have an X here, an X here, and an X here, and an X here, and you have the person here. Now, because this defender is on the same lateral plane as them, they are technically onsides. Now, this is a situation where the call can become slightly iffy because this ref over here may think that this person has a leg sticking out past this line, and they will give the call. So to everyone supporting the X team, they are obviously offsides, and to everyone supporting the O team, they are significantly onsides. So it's a weird psychological situation, but it is a common occurrence in the soccer community. So this is a gray area that is the ref's decision. Now, soccer is an interesting sport where there is not very many situations that can be reviewed, so it is very susceptible to human error, and that can cause some frustration in the community. But at the same time, it is a cultural situation, so it's somewhat the culture of soccer to not have these reviewing systems. Now, they have implemented some reviewing systems in the terms of goal line technology. So if you have the goal, the situation in soccer is it's a goal if the ball is completely over the line. If the ball is slightly on the line, that doesn't work. If the ball doesn't cross the line, that's pretty obvious. That doesn't work. So this one's a goal. So the goal line technology will watch this plane, and if the ball crosses that plane, then it's a goal. I believe this is similar technology to what's being used in tennis to check if the ball hits the line or whatnot. So that's a side note. But I want to explain a little bit of how offsides is different in other sports. So I mentioned some sports earlier. We have hockey. And so these are not my sport of expertise. Well, this hockey specifically is not my sport of expertise. So if you hear me say anything that is incorrect, please don't hesitate to call me out. But from my understanding, an offsides in hockey is, since you have the rink and you have this split into halves, you have the players over here that are on this team and the players over here that are on this team. But obviously, if they're attacking the goal over here, so if you have your circles over here attacking the goal, then there is this void space that maybe a couple players are back there. There's this void space back here that is very open to someone someone skating down the court or the ice to take a shot. So what an offsides is in hockey is if the if one of the opposing players crosses this middle line here before the puck does. So if the puck's still back here, then this player would be considered offsides for crossing this line. And so that's slightly different from soccer, because in soccer it is based off of where the last defender is. And I do want to make a comment on that. So you have your actual defenders, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the last defender. If you had an offender back here, so these are the defenders, and you had an offender back here, then having a player here, that person is still onside, because technically this offender is not is the last defender in this circumstance. And this goes for the goalie as well. So if the goalie, actually that's a little bit more confusing. So it's the last man, not including the goalie. So the goalie can be over here, and this person is offsides. So this one's offsides. But if this defender and the goalie switch place, in terms of the ref's view, this person is actually the goalie, and this goalie is actually the last defender. So there is no restricted position on the field. The only gray area for that is the goalie obviously is the only person that can catch the ball. So they have to be tagged somehow by having a bright colored shirt or something. It's usually pretty obvious who the goalie is. But the goalie, if they are in front of this player here, and there's another player back here, this player doesn't count for the last defender, because in this situation, they're technically the goalie. So that's just a weird situation that can happen in soccer. But moving on to another sport, so football. Football is pretty intuitive in terms of what offsides is. So when you have football, you have a bunch of people up on the line, and you have the other team ready to attack, and you got the quarterback and the running back, and everybody's up here. So you have this imaginary line of scrimmage, which is where the ball is. And so this is the line of scrimmage, and offsides in football simply means that you cannot jump over this line as a defender prior to the ball being set into play. So when the ball is snapped, you can move as much as you want. Well, actually, the defenders can move around, but they can't move forward. So until the ball is snapped, the defenders have to stay on their side of the line. So that's football. That's pretty straightforward. And then the last one I want to talk about is rugby, which is a little bit more confusing. And I do have some friends that play rugby. If you're watching, don't be afraid to pipe up, because I may get this slightly wrong. I don't play rugby myself. So rugby, you have these situations called scrums, where there's just a bunch of people in a formation, and it's similar to football. So in football, you have the individual plays where everybody is up here, and there's this imaginary line that the whole situation is working on. But different from football, soccer, and hockey and everything, offsides is actually talking about the rest of the team. So when you have everybody up here in the scrum, you have other players that are back behind you. Now, these people can't have a player up here, because then they would be considered offsides. I believe, if I am correct, the offsides line is actually at the foot of the last person in the scrum. So if there's a person up here, I believe technically they would be offsides. Like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is from what I have learned from watching rugby and from searching on the internet. This is what I've seen. So that is an overview of the call of offsides. So you can see that offsides is a confusing topic even for people who have a specific sport they follow. So if they were a football fan and they went to a soccer game and they hear the call offsides, they might think that this person has jumped over a line or gone too far up. But this is not the case. Well, technically they have gone too far up, but where the line is actually the confusing part between sports. So that's a general overview on offsides. I'm going to play a quick ad and we'll move into my second topic for today, which is calculus.